everyone, welcome to another episode of the Rookie's Guide to Finke. This week we're going to talk a little bit about hydration and I've called in one of the experts. So Kel from Elevate Sports Dietetics is going to run us through hydration for Finke and other desert races.
Hey legends, I'm Kel, sports dietitian at Elevate Sports Dietetics, keen dirt bike rider and interested in performance nutrition for dirt bike riding and racing. So huge thanks to Trent for having me here to talk to you about nutrition and hydration for Finke, which is just 3.5 weeks away, so pretty exciting. This video is the hydration section. The nutrition section will be separate, and I aim to keep it as simple and as factuous as possible so you can have the information without the waffle. Alright, so let's get into it. It's pretty common sense and straightforward to think that Finke is a desert race, so hydration is up there with utmost importance to prevent hypohydration, dehydration and heat illness and heat stroke at the worst. So going into desert racing, it's hot, sometimes it's humid, sometimes it's dry. You are wearing protective gear, so pants, jerseys, vests, helmets. That means our body temperature is more likely to be increased and our heat loss mechanisms aren't as strong because we're not getting that airflow necessarily because we are so covered up from head to toe in protective gear. So fluid requirements are not only high being desert racing, but they're even higher again just because of the nature of dirt bike racing. So think about previous races that you've done. Have you done Gassy Dash or Kalgoorlie Desert Race, or have you done Finke in the past? Have you run just water and found that you cramped or that you fatigued or you just didn't feel like you were hydrated enough? If that's the case, then maybe consider running something in your hydration pack more than just water. So there's two options besides water that you can do. Actually, there's probably three. You've got electrolytes only, so that would be something like your Hyponatremia sports, which are basically just electrolytes. So the purpose of that is to replace what you've sweated out. So we lose salt. Sodium is the most one that we lose, and you can replace those electrolytes with something like this. The issue with these is that you generally need a really huge amount of them for a camel pack or whatever it is that you're running. So you need nearly the entire thing sometimes. So I mean, some is better than none, but then, you know, there's other ways to go as well. So that is fine if you want to replace your electrolytes. Now, the other way is through sports drinks. So when you look at the nutrition video that I did, I talk a lot about carbohydrate and how carbohydrate fuels exercise and endurance and can decrease fatigue and prevent fatigue from happening. So if you want to do something like that, you can run sports drink in your hydration pack, and it can be something as simple as something from the grocery store. You know, it doesn't have to be fancy online supplements. These will get the job done. You know, and just even grabbing a bottle of Powerade or Gatorade for fuel stops or just before you start the race or at the end of the race is completely fine, okay? Completely fine way to do it. So everyone has a different way of doing things. Some people might run sports drink and then at a fuel stop they change their packs over and run water for a break and then sports drink again. Or you might find that you like sports drink just before you start, water while you race, sports drink as soon as you finish. So there's many ways to get the job done, and you've got to find what works for you and your tolerance. So it's all well and good having this evidence that electrolytes work, sports drinks work, but if you can't drink it because you don't like the flavor or you can't tolerate the saltiness or the sweetness, then it might decrease your performance, not enhance it. So all of this needs to be individualized to you. And like I say with everything, always implement these nutrition strategies in training before race day. Don't get to race day and be the first time you've ever tried running sports drink or something, because you might find it absolutely horrible and end up dehydrated because you don't drink enough. Some of the consequences of underhydration or hypohydration can be minor, such as just like, general fatigue. If you're getting tired, it can be from poor hydration strategies or nutrition strategies. Check that out on the other video. But we know that even moderate levels of dehydration can decrease sporting performance. So making sure that you're going into Finke really well hydrated, in a positive hydration state, and then maintaining that hydration through the race is really crucial. Just like the nutrition video, at the end of day one, rehydration is really important part of your recovery plan. So topping back up the losses that you've just experienced while riding day one, that will have you in a positive balance and a strong point ready for day two. We don't want to be going into day two hypohydrated or low hydration status. That will set us up for headaches, cramp, fatigue, heat stroke and illness. So really important to hydrate as best as we possibly can. Very briefly, I will touch on hyponatremia. It's unlikely to happen, but just in case, there is a condition where you might have seen it in marathon runners where people have died from excessive water consumption. So it happens when we have very large losses of electrolytes, so lots of sweating, you're losing your salts, and then drinking really large amounts of water, and so you're not replacing the electrolytes with, say, one of these sort of products, and you're just having water. So then what happens is the cell levels of sodium becomes really diluted, and it can cause some serious health complications. But I'm talking like 7 liters of water or something. So, you'd rather have almost a small loss of weight with racing than to gain a couple of kilos from excessive fluid consumption. But yeah, I won't talk too much about that. That's highly unlikely, but don't go drinking 8 liters of water. Chuck some electrolytes in there. So I understand that there are concerns sometimes with the pit crew leaving early to make it to the end of day one in time to meet you there. So you get left with just your hydration pack and not trying to dig into your supply too much. So to counteract that, it's really important that you spend the few days leading up to Finke actually hydrating properly. So laying off the beers, laying off the booze, keeping your water intake up really well, keeping urine pale, headaches at bay, keeping your food in, dialing in your nutrition really well. That stuff's really important, because always remember your electrolytes come from food. So you don't have to be sucking on electrolytes for general day-to-day use. If you're drinking water or milk or tea and coffee and smoothies and having adequate food intake, then you meet your electrolyte requirements, no problems with that. So in the days leading up to Finke, make sure your nutrition's really good and your hydration's really up to scratch. Make a really specific attempt to address that. So if possible, have your hydration pack with you, and maybe like a 600ml or 2 600ml sports drinks bottles, either just with water or with sports drink in them. So we can usually tolerate that 600ml really well in the three hours before a race, and an extra sort of 300-400ml cup full just before we start. So that should be tolerated quite well. And then the job then is just racing and maintaining your already positive hydration status. That's what we're looking for. Do you know if you're hydrated enough? We don't always have access to the fancy tools like, specific gravity and things like that. So one of the easiest ways that we can look at our hydration is looking at our urine. So how dark or clear is that? Now, we don't need our urine to be looking like water. It doesn't need to be as clear can be. Urine is full of substrates like urea and things that give it a tinge of yellow. However, the darker that is, the more likely it is that you're increasing your risk of dehydration, and you're already running a bit dry as it is. So the body's extremely clever at maintaining homeostasis across the board. So if you're starting to become low in hydration, the kidneys will resorb that water and hold it for your body. So it's very, very clever at doing that for you, but that's not necessarily a great thing. We want to have really nice, healthy kidneys. Pale yellow urine is a good indicator. If you're on supplements and peeing out most of those supplements like vitamin C and B vitamins, they are water soluble vitamins. You will just pee out anything that you aren't using. That makes it difficult to then look at your urine color and assess your hydration status. So just keep that in mind, I guess. When we finish the end of day 1, recovery is really important, again, to make sure that day 2 you're ready to rock and roll. So rehydration. Now you can do that fine with food and water. Like I said before, you get your electrolytes with food. If you had a protein shake, you would be contributing to your fluid requirements and meeting your protein goals at the same time. If you had something more like soft drink or sports drink or fruit juice, you would be replenishing your glucose stores really rapidly and meeting hydration needs at the same time too. So that can work really well as well. Things like smoothies like chocolate milk are really excellent because they have electrolytes, protein, fluid and carbohydrate. They're just this amazing food really that tick all the boxes. So that's another fabulous option as well. And I show some of those drinks in the nutrition section trying to meet protein needs. So, you can address multiple nutritional goals in one simple intervention. So that makes things really simple and easy to achieve then. Then we always want to follow up. So say for example you had soft drink to replenish your carbohydrate stores and fluid, you still need to follow that up with some quality carbohydrate at the next meal, and then I'd even say have a snack as well. So have a decent meal with pasta, rice, bread or rolls, some meat or fish and chicken, and some vegetables. Then have a glass of milk or some yogurt or frozen yogurt, anything really just to top up your supplies before going to sleep. Then get straight back into it in the morning. Wake up, straight on the water. Lay off the beers, lay off the booze. They are dehydrating. So I talked about caffeine in the nutrition section. Caffeine can be a bladder irritant. It has a diuretic effect, but it's about a 1-to-1 loss, right? So if there was 150 milligrams of caffeine in your coffee, you would lose 150 mil. If your cup was 350 mil, you get a 200 mil gain of fluid. So you get a net positive gain from that. If you were having espresso and you had a 60 ml shot with 100 ml of fluid, then you're going to lose and you'll be in a net loss. So just take that into consideration about your caffeine, alcohol, your fluid intake and your nutrition, because it all comes together just comes together to sort of put the whole thing into perspective, I guess. So just to summarize that and finish it all off, make sure you're hydrating well in advance of Finke day 1. So in the lead up to it, stay in a positive hydration status. Be careful of alcohol and caffeine. Hydrate really well on the morning before, including having like a 600 ml Powerade or sports drink in the 3 hours in the lead up to it. Running your hydration pack with electrolytes or with sports drink. Then making sure you focus really well on recovery at the end of day 1, rehydrating and ready to rock and roll for day 2, starting off again in a positive fluid status, maintaining that, and then end of day 2, get on the beers for all I care. That's all. If you're not racing thereafter or hitting a strong training, then go for your life. Keep it till the end of day 2. The saying goes, make sure your wee is clear before the beer, so make sure you're safe and really well hydrated before you get yourself into any strife. Alright, thanks so much for listening. Kel, Elevate Sports Dietetics. Got any questions or comments, flick them through. Alright, good luck everyone.
So thanks, Cal, for that great bit of info. So there you go, guys. A heap of info there with hydration, which will help for Finke and other desert races and other enduros that you're going to do down the park. So that's it for another episode. I hope you like these, and I hope they help you out for the race. Remember, ride safe, ride smart, and bring home the dog spike. See you next episode.